Welcome back to Daemonologie. This week, not an actual play podcast. We are doing an Unmasked, one of our rarer, looser episodes. The Unmasked, as last week, we're going to be sharing with you some urban legends and popular tales from the 17th to 19th century, which is the entire span of the world of our characters and our guests. I continue to be Siobhan. My pronouns are he, him.
And I'm Alex. My pronouns are he, they.
Oh, Wilcox, what madness do you have for us?
Right, so, I thought... So, a peek further behind the curtain is that I work at a house built in 1618. And so I thought I would share the ghost stories from this house, of which there are a fair few.
Yeah, I'm fucking ready.
Some of the ghost stories. I'll also share which ones we think are fake and why. And also, a lot of the stuff there are not believers in ghosts, but everybody is very exposed to the ghosts there very frequently. People coming in and saying that they've seen something and telling us all about it and giving us lots and lots of experiences and quote unquote evidence. But we do have a lot of experiences that happen there. So I'm going to go through firstly a little rumor about Aston Hall. So it was built in 1618 by a guy called Sir Thomas Holt. Sir Thomas Holt is coming from about 500 years of wool money. Tracked his family back to the 1300s, where they've been sheep farmers for that long. And so there is a lot of generational wealth.
That's a huge amount of sheep.
Yeah. Yeah. Imagine the number of sheep.
That's like 300 sheep generations.
And, it's a classic rags to riches story of a family over the course of 500 years. Yes, you can make it too under the divine right of kings. It will just take you 500 years. So Sir Thomas Holt, he bought a title. And he wanted to... the title Baronet was being sold by, I believe, Charles I, to raise money for the Civil War that was upcoming. And so Thomas Holt made himself a baronet. And as a part of that, he thought, I'll have a big house to go along with that and sort of secure myself in the gentry. So Thomas Holt is a horrible individual. Sort of next level. There are so many stories of bloody murder. So the first that isn't a ghost story, I'll go with, is that, and this is documented, we have evidence of this. So Thomas Holt was sued by somebody for, and I'm not sure if it was his cook or the other guy's cook. So Thomas Holt was sued for killing a cook with a cleaver.
Oh, good lord.
Not in any sort of it was an act, with a fucking cleaver.
And he was only sued for the cleaver murder.
The sue failed. Let me tell you, Sir Thomas Holt countersued, saying, "Nay, I did not kill him. I only hit him in the head with the cleaver. Whether he died was his own business or not." That's not word for word. I'm adding the flavour, but this is Sir Thomas Holt hit a cook in the head with a cleaver, and I don't want to get sued by a ghost, but Sir Thomas Holt hit a cook in the head with a cleaver, and then said, no, I didn't kill him, he killed him. He did his own death. I don't know. I just hit him in the head. So
he was irresponsible to have all that blood in his head.
Yep. I wouldn't do that. I'd put it somewhere else.
My head, of course, is full of cork and gin.
So, the house in this time was then attacked by 300 people during the Civil War in one of the first actual battles, and defended by 100. The house was then, put into pretty, bad disrepair from being attacked during the Civil War. But then in around this period is where we start to get to the ghosts. So, there are 3 from Thomas Holt's time. Or I'm going to go with the 4 main ones. There are 3 from Thomas Holt's time and 1 from much, much later. So, firstly, we'll go sort of off the theme of cooks and kitchens. We'll go with Dick. So Dick is a serving boy. He has a portion of the house named after him. It's Dick's Garret, which is the attic, which means that a lot of people go like, and what happened to Dick Garret? But Garret means attic. Poor boy Dick Garret. So the story is, and it varies wildly, so I will just go with the bare minimum details, is that Dick is brought into the staff of the hall by the butler. At, unknown period after his tenure, he is caught by the cook stealing from the table the leftovers, the scraps of a meal. And the cook grabs him by the hand, and Sir Thomas Holt is away for the weekend. So, Dick is locked in the attic over the course of the weekend.
I can feel where this is going.
Yeah. When Sir Thomas Holt arrives back on Monday, they open the attic doors, and Dick has hung himself.
Oh, God!
Yeah. So Dick is thinking for all of this time, knowing the bloody violent reputation of Sir Thomas Holt, he thinks, I'm going to get a cleaver to the face, or my life is going to be not worth living, or maybe my family's life will not be worth living. And so he ends up hanging himself in the attic.
Good Lord.
Yeah. It's a big one. It's a big one. Continuing on from the theme of attics, right next door there was a room affectionately known by some people as the prison room. Now, the prison room, Dick's Garret is a long hall. It spans most of the length of the top of the house. And there are sort of like 3 smaller doors off to the side. Maybe he was locked in one of the doors off to the side. They're sort of like small rooms, but they're rooms. The prison room is not a room. It is like you've got the roof directly above your head. Like, it is like, I do not fit in there. It is like maybe 2.5 meters long. And then there is like a tiny window, that is currently boarded up. So I don't know.
That's literally smaller than most coffins.
Maybe it's like closer to like 3 meters, because like I could lie in there, I guess. But it is very small. And so to understand this story, I think you need to understand a little bit about Sir Thomas Holt's son. So Sir Thomas Holt's son married the daughter of a bishop, and Sir Thomas Holt could not forgive this. He completely disinherited his son.
Oh.
And did never forgive him. And his son was happily married for the rest of his life, but a bishop's daughter was too low of a social standing for Sir Thomas Holt to stomach. Now, the reason that is important is because this is about Sir Thomas Holt's daughter. The rumour is that she wanted to marry a baker's son in the local village. And Sir Thomas Holt, as he is wont to do, did not take kindly to this, and so instead locked her in the prison room until she died. So, the story is either that, problematically she went mad, mad from the loneliness, and, started wailing, wandering the corridors, or, there's also the story that she starved to death. But, all the same, this is the second ghost story. So, next to the attics, you've got two big ghost stories. One is the prison room, where Sir Thomas Holt's daughter was locked until she died. And the other is Dick's garret, where Dick hung himself.
Oh, crazy. I didn't know you were, working in the house of the Midlands Bluebeard.
Quite literally. So, the third one, I'm going to jump really far forward in time, and then I'm going to unpick those, and then I'm going to say the only one I can't unpick. So, jumping pretty far forward in time, we have Selina Powell. Now, Selina Powell is a tightrope walker. This is at the point where the house has long moved out of the hands of the Holts. Instead, it was in the hands of James Watt Jr., who's the son of the famous industrialist of Birmingham fame, James Watt. James Watt Jr. moves into Aston Hall and renovates it and does some fantastic work, but eventually dies. The hall is at that point in the hands of a banking company who's been renting it out, but they cannot rent it out any longer because at this point in the Victorian period, Jacobean fashion had just gone out of fashion. And so, the Victorians are really bad for this. This is fashionable for 10 years, and then it's not. And now all of these things need to be demolished. They really started the fast fashion. And so Aston Hall was going to be demolished, but the local population said, no, we've got to keep it. It's a part of our identity as Astonians, or, North Brummies.
Interesting to note that hadn't realised this, that the whole end of Villa Park is on grounds that used to be Aston Hall.
Yep.
It's very, very Birmingham.
Yeah, so Villa Park is directly viewable from the grounds of Aston. They're honestly really not far from each other at all. But so they hold this big fundraiser, and they hold a lot of fundraisers. But this big fundraiser, they had Selina Powell going back and forth on her tightrope between the two lodges at the foot of the courtyard in front of the house. She is an incredibly proficient performer. She's been doing it for a lot of her life. I think she's about middle-aged at this point when she's doing it. But she's also pregnant. Now,
pregnant tightrope walker.
Still working. Good for her.
Yeah.
Well, not very good for her actually. Because this isn't even something to do with the fact that she's pregnant and doing tightrope walking. She's still incredibly proficient. The tightrope snaps.
Holy fuck!
And so she plummets not too far, but far enough, and she unfortunately breaks her neck. And so they drag her or carry her into the hall, into the Great Hall itself, and they lay her down, and that is where she dies while waiting for medical attention.
I would have really not liked to be dragged into Aston Hall. It's giving me a big Bly Manor feeling.
Yeah, that's what killed her. Let's be honest. So, firstly, Selina Powell definitely died. She definitely died there. She was definitely pregnant. This is definitely the story. We have tremendous records to back that up. However, she is also, funnily enough, the ghost that is rarely spotted. No one ever... she is right there in the Great Hall. The Great Hall is, of course, a very well-lit room. Is an incredibly well-lit room. It's, the right at the front of the house. It's the busiest area. No one spots her there. No one spots her outside. She is just
suspicious.
No one ever likes to spot her. It's almost like, she's not actually haunting the place. Occasionally someone will hear or say after this story that they saw a woman with a crooked neck. It's like, oh my god, that's Selina Powell. Just like nearly headless Nick in the Harry Potters. But there's no reason to believe that though she broke her neck, that it would just flop along the side. She is very rarely sighted and is in the place where most people are visiting all of the time. But it's not as spooky as the attics. So Dick Garrett, serving boy Dick, the first record of his story is from the Victorian era.
And they love to make shit
Oh,
up.
they love their ghosts. They love their death. They love they loved all that. And so, like, while Dick is quite an often spotted ghost, or quite an often spotted feeling, it is also one that we can point directly to. Oh, that's when it started becoming a museum, and I'll bet you they did a ghost tour.
Oh yeah, the Victorians, the OG goths.
Yeah, historic goth.
They couldn't get enough of it.
So then we've got Sir Thomas Holt's daughter. Now, there is credibility to the idea that she married someone that Thomas Holt did not like. Because, of course, we've got the evidence of Sir Thomas Holt's son being completely disinherited from the will just for marrying below his station. But what we do have from the daughter is her grave, which has been found in a different county. So I don't know if they took her from her place of dying in the attic of Aston Hall and then moving her into Warwickshire. It doesn't quite add up. Also, most likely what has happened is she was disinherited just like her brother, but because she was found in a Catholic church and the Holts were renowned Protestants. So likely she married outside of her religion or converted and was thus treated with disdain.
Really fucking dicey to convert during the English Civil War.
Yeah, go for it. Wild. You go, girl. I don't know how she died, but, might be because of that. So
clearly she died for that good Catholic dick.
Oh, dick's so good you convert religion.
Forsake your father and mother, get this dick.
Forsake your father, the father, and your mother. So those are the three ghost stories of Aston Hall that can very easily be explained away. However, there is one more which I cannot so easily explain away. This is one with it is the most spotted ghost, and also there is one detail which I know people who've experienced this. So it is said in the Long Gallery, which is a gallery that runs the length of the back of Aston Hall, there is a spirit of Madam Walker. Madam Walker is the original housekeeper of Aston Hall. And she is a very benign spirit. She will be seen in a flowing green dress, and not flowing, but a long green dress. And she will simply like to keep the place tidy and in order.
Oh.
So, if there is mess at the end of a day, it will be tidied away by Madam Walker. As the person who tidies things away, I think she could pull away a bit better. But she is often sighted, frequently in the green, with people not knowing this fact beforehand, and people very often sense the prelude to seeing Madam Walker, which is in the withdrawing room, just before the Long Gallery. A lot of people are known to smell flowers.
Oh.
Something that, I unlock and lock at the beginning and end of the day. There's never any flowers there. There's nothing below the floorboards. People did put something at one point to for the sort of like spooky ghost tours to sort of like spook people and go like, you can smell flowers, and there was like a little scent puffer, but that is not there anymore and was there because of the story in the first place. Wow. So Madam Walker might well be the ghost. But the other three, probably not so much.
Probably not so much. It's nice to think. Yeah. It's nice to think that the only ghost that's probably there is the nice lady.
Yeah, exactly. The only other little detail about Aston Hall is that a lot of people think there is a tunnel to the local church. People are absolutely obsessed with priest holes and tunnels And so they'll always come in and go like, "Have you got any priest holes?" And it's like, no, Protestant place. Catholics did that. This is Protestant place. And they're like, "Oh, heard about the tunnel though." And then they're like, "Oh, there's a tunnel to the hall, right? There's a tunnel to the local church. The local church is also Catholic." And you know, I've said a few, this house is Protestant. The idea that they would put a little tunnel to a place that they despised, and you know that frequently they'll try to kill each other. I just don't think it's a good move. Just don't think it's a good move.
Maybe the church and Thomas Holt both dug parallel tunnels towards each other to try and stick up at each other, and they just met one day and were like, "Oh, Christ, can't use this again.
Fill it in." Oh, so I thought I would share that of Aston Hall, the place that I work. A few little ghost stories.
Well, those were pleasingly spooky. I was especially interested in looking around that almost all of his children died before he did.
Yeah. There's a brilliant portrait in the Great Hall of him at age 60, at age 30. Like, you look at it and you're like, oh, yes, and this is meant to be at the point at which the house was fully completed in 1635, and at that point, Sir Thomas Holt would have been 60 years old, and oh gosh, he's looking very good for his age. It is in fact the portrait that is on his Wikipedia. It was copied and moved across as a later painting. It's a great little hall. Do come visit. I'll be there. Literally,
they will be there. They will be there in person.
So that's
don't come to where I work. It's just my house.
Fab. Okay, so I'll now tell about my tale from the void, shall I?
Oh yes, please.
So I wanted to talk about shedding a bit of light on the stink bomb.
The stink bomb.
Ponzi schemes stink bomb. Because I played with a few of my friends shortly after we did. No, actually, a little bit before. We did the first season of the podcast. I wanted to test it out, play around with it. And so I played a little game with them. This ended up being so much slower. And we ended up overtaking in the actual play session. To quite a significant degree that I only think we got like 1 or 2 sessions of actual prep by playing, and then it was just like slowly go like, oh, okay, you're playing in the canal, cool. That's not really progressive. No, that's fine. It's fine. Which leads to the stink bomb. Oh god, I can't remember the character's name. But there was an alchemist on the north side of Bristol, who was playing about with making explosives, using some sugar. Ponzi broke in through the skylight, and instead of doing... so Ashcroft Lane, who we also saw, was out in the front of the shop distracting the alchemist as Ponzi, and this is one of the instances of Ponzi falling off things. Ponzi climbed up to the top of the building, fell in through the skylight, and luckily was not hurt. I think this was maybe a devil's bargain. Proceeded to not investigate, but just make a stink bomb. Which I think she kept one and let one off immediately, climbed back out, and then back in to be there with Ashcroft Lane. Honestly, so little investigate. I think I managed to get out. Oh, there's a sweet smell, and she's like, "Oh, make a stink bomb," as Ponzi does. Also in this scenario, this is where we started to get to the bugbears. We got a fight with two bugbears, which took place in Ashcroft Lane's subconscious.
Oh my god.
Everybody went into the dreamscape of Ashcroft Lane, which turned out to be a painting. Can I fucking remember it? Good God. It was a painting of a battle that happened in northern Italy in, 1580 something. And so it was said that, early 1500s. And it was said that Ashcroft Lane was there, actually at the battle, but then saw the painting later in life and went, "Oh, that's very good. Oh, yes. Oh, it looks just like the real thing." This was where Ashcroft Lane was learning his sort of medical skills. He was like a field battle medic. And because his only medical skill at the time was midwifery, he said that he was performing midwife duties of allowing people to give birth during the battle for some fucking reason. At this point, one of the bugbears sort of turns into this huge giant knight by rippling together all of the different people from the battle scene into one giant form.
So afraid that you would say huge giant baby.
Huge giant baby! The bugbear is born into Ashcroft's arms. Horrible. Turns into one giant knight using all of the soldiers in the painting, and then they start. One of the other characters shoots a bolt of lightning with the spear of Lug into him and ripples him, burns him apart. The other bugbear then transports them to Harvington Hall in the West Midlands, a place that Ashcroft Lane has apparently visited a few times. At which point they were all sort of plummeted into different rooms in the house. Ponzi is right in the attic with the bugbear on her own. So she sees a slanted roof that she plans to jump out of. And honest to God, whiffs it so hard. So she just jumps out the window, smashes through it, smashes her head and body on the slanted roof, rolls down it onto another fucking roof, rolls down that, and just thump on the fucking floor. And there is something so comical about this being this shitty, shit talking, I'm a fucking geezer! Kid. That is just sort of ragdolling that child is so funny. So when she was, 2 weeks ago, rocketed into the side of a tree by a giant, it's a great callback. And then proceeding to jump out and just land flat on her face. It was brilliant.
Yeah, just doing a full Wile E. Coyote, there's nothing there, straight down. Ooh! Loved it.
The final bit from this session that I do want to highlight, because I remember it being very funny, is the so the way that we dealt with I can't remember, there was a manor to the southwest.
Which the guy that wanted to be mayor eventually. Yeah.
And so the way that we dealt with it in the actual play is we arrived at night and blood started pouring out of the barrels in the cellar. Everything was going wrong. There were gremlins and gnomes in the study stealing things. Instead, in this session that I played with my friends, with Ashcroft Lane and Ponzi Scheme, Ashcroft and another character, they did a ferry road across to the house to make it a lot quicker. And they ran into a ghillie-doo on the way who offered them some fairy butter. Now, the rules about fairy butter is any food that is cooked with the butter completely restores any stations. However, eating the butter, I believe unmelted or unprepared, means that you get the shits. So instead of arriving in the pitch of night and seeing blood pouring out of the cellars and gnomes in the study, they arrive and Ashcroft says, "Please, may I use your lavatory?" And they just take it in turns, like in I Think You Should Leave's skit with the Turbo Team, Like, they take it in turns going out of the bathroom so that they can shit out the fairy butter.
Are they like shitting fireflies?
Oh, yeah! They are! Oh, I totally forgot that detail. So, as you can tell, incredibly different vibe.
Very different energy to the first season. You were on a very Terry Pratchett vibe. We were on a very Neil Gaiman vibe.
Yep.
When we did the actual play.
Very much so. You know, the final confrontation, if they got to it, I would have assumed would have gone something like feeding the fairy butter to the giant demon snake so that it shit itself to death. Which, is not a bad strategy, but also...
Whatever works. Whatever.
So yeah, there you go. There's my period accurate story, and then Tales from the Void, and I hope that it was both enjoyable. Yeah.
Well, shall we bid our listeners adieu?
Yeah. Thank you very much for listening to again. Nice short and sweet episode. I'm savouring it. Means I have to do less editing. Please find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Daemonologie RPG. That's Daemonologie with an IE RPG. Send us your own ghastly tales from the period, or any of your own tales from the void of you playing Daemonologie, because I absolutely love to hear that. To demonologyrpg@gmail.com. As I said last time, some of the handles might change in the coming month. Bear with us. Aside from that, rate us 5 stars. Please.
Please, doesn't matter what you say. You can say whatever you like.
And, if you give... If it was funny review... Or, put your own little ghost stories in the reviews, and then people go like, what the fuck's going on here? And then they'll have to get all this way to then understand why that's happening. And then, brilliant stuff.
Then we've got them.
Yeah, we've got them.
Yeah.
Also thank you to Tasha Soffler and Oscar Russell. Tasha for the music, Oscar for the graphic design. Find more of Oscar's stuff on Watchtower Design. And see you next week. Bye-bye.
See you next week. Bye.
Sick.